Hi guys, it's Valentina here from The Stars Inside, and today I'm chatting a little bit about styling, advice and tips and ideas for small weddings, for micro weddings and elopements. Obviously a lot of couples out there are considering this now for their wedding, whether maybe it's the best solution for them right now, or it might have been what they wanted to do all along, but there are a lot of couples out there planning smaller celebrations. So today we wanted to chat a little bit about some advice for you guys from a styling perspective. So if you have downscaled your guest list, but you've kept your venue the same, which means you're maybe worried about adapting a bigger venue to a smaller guest list, there are lots of really wonderful things you can do to make that space feel cozier and more welcoming, more intimate. It's really all about considered design. So a few things I love doing. So one of them is adding a lot of twinkly dim lighting, which is a really, really lovely way of making a space feel snug. I love using large potted plants as a way of sectioning off a room and creating different areas, and also brings the outside in, which is just a really, really lovely feeling. Another thing you can do is use more creative seating ideas and table layouts. So something like, for example, using like a U shape for the tables if there's enough of you, or a banquet table is really nice. And also you could do something like mix it up and have a few rectangular, a few round ones, and that takes up more space and is really dynamic and modern and looks really cool, and that's a really nice way of using up the space. For your ceremony, I actually really, really love the idea of seating your guests around you in a circle, which again takes up more space and isn't really doable with a larger guest list, but when it is just a few of you, it's really intimate, really lovely. All of your guests are the best seat in the house, so it's a really special way of doing it. Something else that I love doing is using part of the room as like a lounge. So, you add a few sofas or a few armchairs, a few coffee tables, and you really create these little nooks where people can cluster into little groups and catch up, which is really, really nice. If you have lots of spare space and you're thinking, what can I do with it? You could hire in a really beautiful bar. You could hire in something rectangular or like a circular bar, which takes up lots of space. And what's cool about that is it creates a really focal point that you can use for your styling, for some signage, some stationery or florals, and it takes up loads of room. So it's a really good way to make a room feel smaller. I also love using interactive food and drink stations. Again, it uses up a lot of space, and it's a really cool way to make the room feel like there's lots going on, and it's really immersive, which is really fun for your guests as well. Floral installations obviously are a big, element of styling, and so if you love flowers and you have a budget that you're happy to invest in flowers, then you can talk to your florist about creating some standalone installations. You could do this around certain features of your venue or cool pieces of furniture, or they could be hanging installations, which is also really, really cool. So that's sort of another way of, again, making that room feel that little bit cozier. And if you do have a really tall ceiling, having those hanging installations just brings it all down a little bit and makes it all feel a little bit cozier, which is great. And if you do have really tall ceilings, another cool thing to do is to use hanging fabric. And this doesn't, it doesn't need to look stuffy or, too traditional. It can be done in a really modern, beautiful way. And it's just adding that little bit of texture. And if you do have a little bit of wind coming in, you've got those, floating fabrics, which is just a really, really nice styling element. When it comes to the design of a really small, sophisticated wedding, for me, really, it's about embracing that intimacy through all the different elements that contribute to the ambiance of the day. So whether that might be your table, your florals, and it might be, of course, the colors that you use and the textures and all of that, but also things like your lighting and the music and the flares and the scented candles, all of that together. Like for me, styling feels effortless when everything works together in harmony. When it comes to your tables, for example, you could be thinking about having lots of little details which help tell your story, but also think about, how can you make it comfortable? How can there be plenty of breathing room? You want people to, have space to get comfy. You want them to be able to, have easy access to drink and like clear eye levels so they can have really, engaging, meaningful conversations. I think that's really the secret to intimate styling. Things like low, lush florals and lots of little candles on the table. Again, it creates that glow on people's faces and it makes the whole area feel that much more cozy, which is really, really nice. If you'd like to, you can invest in things like textured linen. You can have colored napkins, colored linen, but also colored glassware, specialist cutlery and crockery. I love adding those little details to tables. Mixing textures is another really good way of making, really setting that mood. So for example, you might have, velvet armchairs, and you could have, that really luxurious, like textured linen, and then you might pair that with, for example, some vellum place cards and handmade ceramic. There's lots of really lovely details that you can add to your table. I would say that if you are working with a room that has a very high ceiling, another thing you can think about for your tables is, can you create sort of a mix of high and low arrangements so that you are filling the space a little bit better? I think, when I'm designing a room, I think of the room filled with all the things that we're talking about, and then I ask myself, like, does it feel balanced? Does the top of the room feel balanced with the bottom of the room? Does the left and the right feel balanced? And by that I don't mean pure symmetry, but I mean, there's just going to be certain elements that will have a certain weight in the room, and you want to be thinking about that level of balance. And also, when you think about the room, does it feel welcoming? Does it make you want to walk into it and relax? Is it working with the natural features of the venue, or is it contrasting them? Like, you want to be enhancing what's already there and complementing it. And, for these small weddings, styling is one of the ways that you will be slowing down the pace and really embracing that feeling of intimacy and just giving every single guest, the chance to feel present and just really connect with each other. So for me, designing small weddings really is all about that meaningful luxury and thinking of what the ways are that you want to look after your loved ones in a really personal way to you. So, we do want it to look gorgeous. We do want it to look and feel exclusive, but at the same time, we want it to feel really intentional and thought through. I know that a lot of my couples who are having small celebrations have decided to do things like introduce family heirlooms into their styling, or some favorite little elements from their home, which again gives it that feeling of just having stepped into your space and welcomed your guests into it. Also things like hand finished touches, so it might be like embroidered napkins, or handwritten menus, or personalized notes, or little illustrations of all of your guests. So many little things that you can do. I think for me, like, small weddings really are an amazing opportunity to go really hyper custom. So, you might be thinking of things that you would love to do, but simply would be financially or logistically prohibitive for a larger guest list, that's where having a smaller wedding does allow you to indulge in all these wonderful little things that are going to make you happy. For example, you might work with a stationer and you could together create a suite of really amazing elements for the day, like, really statement pieces, like some engraved favors or some etched place cards, for example. Monogrammed wax seals could be really cool, or like a really elaborate escort card display, for 20 guests or 10 guests or whatever it is that your number is. Every one of your suppliers is going to be able to work with you to create something really special. So you might say to your caterer, like, how can we display the food, with some really wonderful, styled florals through it, or, whatever it is that you love. You can work with your suppliers to make sure they get that kind of styling emphasis. Your drinks, could we add some edible florals? Could we have beautiful little trays holding them. You know, there's lots of beautiful, or, you know, the glasses themselves. Do you want the glasses to stand out? Do you want them to be etched or vintage or whatever? You know, just because you have fewer guests, really, you don't need to be feeling like you need to give up on those styling things that you love. So, you know, if you love the way wedding cakes look, then you should absolutely work with a baker who is going to create a small but really exquisite cake for you and your guests. And, you know, you could even weave it into the styling of the table itself so that it, you know, it has a place of honor. You know, I would say think about breaking down each area into its parts and then thinking about all the little details that you can add to every little element that are just going to delight your guests as they discover them. If you're feeling worried about the styling element of your micro wedding, think about maybe finding a venue that already has a lot of, you know, character of its own, or maybe, you know, you're going to head to a destination where the views are the forte, and so really it is the views that are going to do all of the talking, because, you know, small weddings really are centered around the ceremony itself and the guest experience. So if, you know, the wedding look isn't something that's important, that is, you know, as important to you, that's totally fine, you know, and you can just, you know, let a magical location do all the talking. Small weddings are much more nimble when it comes to finding venues. So, you know, of course, you can head to manors and hotels and all the sort of usual wedding locations, but also you could find any one of thousands of private hire venues or beautiful small holiday homes like Airbnbs and things like that. Or you could just pick, you know, a room in your favorite restaurant, or a spot on your favorite cliff, or, you know, a little pergola in your favorite garden, or whatever it is, you know, because you have a smaller guest list, you can really, really broaden that venue search and keep the venue, you know, firmly in mind when you're thinking about your styling as well. If it does feel right for you, working with a stylist is a really wonderful way to, you know, go all in with the styling, create something really special and unique to you, and also just have fun with it, you know, especially if you are downscaling from what was a larger wedding. I know that it can feel quite disheartening to imagine letting go of some things, and working with a stylist can just be a way of getting that excitement back. For me, the most important piece of advice that I can give to anyone who is planning an intimate wedding is that, you know, whether or not this guest list was your original plan, you know, whether you always thought you were gonna elope, or whether this is an adaptation to the current circumstances, there is no reason that a small wedding should be any less beautiful or exciting or special, you know, like it's, your budget will go much further for a small guest list than it will for a large one. And whatever you choose to do with that is up to you, you know, whether it's, you know, indulging in things that you love or spending more in the experience, you know, whatever it is that makes you happiest, whether that's, you know, making sure the styling is like absolutely on point, or whether it's treating each of your guests to a Michelin star, you know, meal. So you get to decide what you want to do with that added flexibility and that added freedom. This is really your opportunity to reprioritize the things that matter the most to you, and to create an experience that you're even more excited to share with your loved ones when the time does come around. I hope this little brainstorm was helpful for you and maybe a little bit inspiring. If you do have any questions or any thoughts, or maybe concerns about styling your micro wedding or your elopement, I would love to hear from you. You know, small weddings are absolutely my jam, and styling is at the very heart of everything I do, because I believe that surrounding yourself with beauty on such an important day of your life is part of the way that you create, you know, these lifelong memories. So yes, I would love to hear from you if I can help at all, but if not, in the meantime, I hope this has been helpful, and I will say bye there. Bye guys.